Hey there, this is Natalie, and I wanted to thank you for checking out To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. I am very excited because recently I celebrated the podcast's first birthday. And what better way to celebrate than to try and build up this community of tolerators and gather them all in one space. To do that, I launched our Patreon where you can make a monthly contribution to the podcast and get some amazing benefits like early access to episodes, ad-free episodes, some virtual hangout time with me and other tolerators, and other ways to really allow us to get to know one another. Any support that you can give to the podcast will be so helpful in the second year to help me elevate the content and grow our community. There is a link in the show notes that contains all the information you need to help the podcast grow. I love and appreciate every one of you. Happy birthday, Team Tolerator. Hey Tolerators, this is To All the Men I've Tolerated Before with Natalie Katona, the show where my guest and I chat about the things that are put into place so people can't feel comfortable in the communities we're taking part in. Today we're joined by my friend Natalie. No, I won't be talking to myself, even though I often tell you that I'm my own best friend. It may get confusing, but we'll rock and roll with it. But we're going to be talking about gatekeeping in the gaming community. Welcome to the show, Natalie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so stoked to be here, and thank you for that killer intro, too. That was...
You're welcome. Natalie and I met through TikTok because that's how I make friends now.
Totally. It's our only social construct that, allows for community building.
Truly.
Really.
And you learn a lot about people through their TikTok. So I feel weirdly comfortable. I can reach out to this person.
Definitely. It gives you great insight on who people actually are.
Exactly. Sometimes. People can still lie on the internet, but if you haven't joined TikTok yet just to make friends, I don't know what I have to do to convince you. I just don't know.
It's true. It's the ultimate solution for adults feeling like they can't make friends or don't know how to. It's a great platform for that.
It is. Yeah. It's a great platform. So I think we're just going to jump into the number one. There are two reasons that are tied in my head about why I felt like this episode was important and why you were going to be fantastic for this episode. And I think that geek bros have all of a sudden gotten this really great reputation, and I blame the Big Bang Theory.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. What a driver.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're exactly right.
I think it made them almost cool, but also leads people into believing that they're still just awkward guys who whisper to their friends instead of talking to you. And instead we never just explore the reason why there aren't a lot of people who aren't just cis white guys in gaming is because they act a fool when we're there.
It's true. It's true. And it's painted a very biased picture about that community. And I think the people actually in it, it's really good at just showing one side of it, and not all that's entailed. Yeah.
And then I feel when it comes to the Bernadettes, the Pennies, and Amy, when it came to the women that were on the show, I feel whenever they were involved in the geekery, it was very stereotypical to either the naggy girlfriend or the isn't it so cute you're doing this just for me girlfriend or anything like that.
Right. Or the stereotypical gamer girl that tries a little too hard to fit into that community.
Exactly. Which are things that we get accused of all the time. Either we're only doing it for clout, we're only doing it to be cute, we're only doing it to impress a guy, which brings into my actual number one reason that we're sitting here today, Marisha Ray.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
So I didn't start watching Critical Role until I was working a very toxic job, and I needed something to take me out of sitting in my office, like in the environment. And because I haven't watched Critical Role until this current year, I have no knowledge of what I would call like critter fandom lore. But I have a friend who let me know, she was like, don't get into the critter forums. And I went, why? And she's like, they're really mean to Marisha. And then that leaks over to Laura and Ashley, and you'll just be mad all the time.
Yeah.
And so then of course I can't not, because then I'm like, why would you be mean to Marisha? Right.
Exactly. And then you want to know what they have to say, you know, and pique that curiosity, as sick as it is. Yeah, it's messed up.
And basically, I'm so far into Critical Role's existence where now there was more literature backing up the reason why she's a good role player and deserves to be on Critical Role than there was like just flaming her. But I am very grateful that I don't watch it on Twitch. I watch it on YouTube, so I don't have to see live comments.
Yes. And you wonder, and I think we've touched on this before too, you wonder why critters choose to continue being critters and continue to add to that conversation if all they have to say is like harsh criticism.
Right.
You know, it's like, are you actually a critter? You're just jumping into the comments to like blast people.
Exactly. For attention.
Yeah. Right.
For tolerators who might be new, I have talked about Critical Role before because it consists of the only men that I'll tolerate loving at this point, Liam O'Brien and Taliesin Jaffe. Like, that's it.
Excellent. Yeah.
And I will hang out with Sam because he's as chaotic as I was in my 20s, and he's just still chaotic.
Hell yeah. I feel like Sam in real life is actually pretty wholesome.
And then Matt Mercer looks like he gives the warmest of hugs. So I believe that.
Yes. A part of me feels like there's a side of Matt that, I don't know. He has some golden retriever with anger issues energy. You know, like there's something underlying in there that, I don't know. He just seems like he could snap and it'd be harsh, and I wouldn't be surprised at all.
And then you'd be devastated because your DM snapping at you is like your dad snapping at you.
Right. Yeah, you're like, oh shit, I'm in serious trouble here. Yeah.
Right, I'm at the principal's office. He's not going to let me play anymore and or kill my character. But for tolerators who don't know, Critical Role is a live streaming D&D campaign, and they're on their third campaign. So they've done, I guess you would call them, if you need it to be in TV terms, 3 seasons of them playing different characters, Dungeons and Dragons campaign, Matt DMs, and there are 3 women on the show, Laura Bailey, Ashley Johnson, who I was so blown away when I logged on, and I was like, that's that little girl from Family Ties.
Oh my gosh. And little orphan Annie over here. Yeah.
Child actor. So cute.
She is so cute.
But
both as a child and as an adult.
But like, also as an adult, she's so fucking sexy sometimes. I'm like, Ashley, my childhood.
It's true. I have a major crush on Ashley Johnson. This is known.
Yeah.
Freaking love her.
Marisha Ray is a woman who role plays and is a cast member and also like creative director of the entire company that they've created.
Married to Matt Mercer, the DM.
Right.
Yeah.
She happened to be the girlfriend of the DM when they started, which made the internet angry for whatever reason.
Yeah. They just think favorability that Matt was going to favor her, which he totally does not. No. Matt can be, you know, he explores all sides of storytelling, no matter who that puts under. You know?
I honestly think sometimes Matt lets Laura get away with way more back talk than he ever does with Marisha.
Totally. Yes. 100%. I could not agree more. Laura often takes the stage, but I don't regret it. I'm like, she... Quality human.
I have a dragon up here on my desk, and its name is Bailey because it's winking like she used to do for Vex.
Oh my
So I named the
gosh.
dragon
That's
after
amazing.
her because I love Laura Bailey. And I am Jester in my friend group. I found out I had to text someone in a professional manner, and I might as well have just ended the message with, "Are you pooping?" Because I was just
Are you pooping?
"Hi, it's Natalie. I got your number from this person, and she told me you'd be nice, so I thought we could meet and talk."
Are you pooping?
Are you pooping?
Do.
Right.
So great.
I could feel Travis like counting my words in the text message. I was like, "Oh,
oh yes." Like, damn, am I over 25 characters or 25 words?
But
amazing.
What ended up happening very on in Critical Role is that not only were people throwing at Marisha that she was a typical girlfriend who dated the DM, who got to do whatever she wanted during the game and didn't actually have to learn anything. But like literally, I believe at some point she was threatened like multiple times in the DMs by multiple people.
I believe that. I believe she still receives threats, and I think that all of the women probably still do. But I also heard that she was super young. They started in 2015 when they first started streaming. That was, campaign 1. She was super young, super new to Dungeons and Dragons. I heard that she had apparently only played Pathfinder before, and so she was totally new to the system. And that just left a lot of gaps for people to come in and just be brutal.
Also, she was playing a spellcaster. She was playing a druid, and as a person who mains a rogue and is now trying their hand at a druid, because I was like, I'll be witchy for this next campaign. It's a lot to fucking keep track of.
Oh my gosh. It's so much to keep track of. And druids are arguably one of the most powerful classes in Dungeons and Dragons. And so when you wield that much power as a new player, you don't even know where to begin.
No.
You know?
She would do things that I found adorable when she would make a flop up, except for the one time that I really got stressed out that Marisha messed up was when she turned them all into clouds and they realized that they couldn't do anything. And I was like, oh no, oh no, they're going to be so mean to you. And I had like nervous hands, but she immediately owned, she's like, I did not read that closely. And I fucked up, and I read a lot of articles about it. And what I think, I mean, Marisha and Critical Role aside, I think what it really highlighted to me is that this is a problem across the board. I used to work in theater, and a guy that I used to work in theater with plays online video games. And he says that his wife can't be in the room while he's playing because she gets so furious at the language guys use while they're playing video games that would make it a community that is inaccessible to women. It's a lot of sexual assault terminology. It's a lot of terminology that goes hard on mental disabilities and things like that without like saying the words. We all know, like, we can, whatever you're thinking, they're saying. And then when a woman enters the game and is like, hey, I'm not cool with you saying that you're going to assault me. Like, it's like a thing that I have to think about every day. Instead of the guys going, oh, cool, I learned something. They're mad that you like took away something special. Like you broke their toy.
Right. That is their space. That is a men exclusive space where they can trash on women all the time, relentlessly. And they don't respond well to that kind of communication, as clear and as approachable as it is. It's funny how you kind of have, if you do want to break into that industry and to start gaming online, you have to bring the same energy to match theirs. You have to be just as brutal. You have to be on the defense constantly. And there are a few Twitch gamers, that play Call of Duty that showcase that really well, but you have to be sharp too and throw it right back at them. And then, throwing rocks from a glass house, they get their feelings hurt. And they're like, why are you so mean? Why are you making fun of me? You don't have to make fun of me to get your argument across. And it's like, homie, this is what I have to do to even break in here. Right. So you're gonna have to deal with it.
Also, you called me names just for like showing up.
Right.
That's what happened. Which I think is also so very telling about how conflict management goes when we have these conversations about like, hey, I realized for decades, like this was just your boys club and you got to get together with your bros and be like, my wife sucks and I wish she'd stay in the kitchen and I'm going to pwn your ass like I do hers every night. And then you're like told like, has your wife ever heard you say that? Because it's gross. And then they're like, what do you mean it's gross? This is my clubhouse. It's like when SCOTUS released a document detailing all of the worst things possible we had nightmares about them saying about women, and it was just a leaked document.
Right. Just a page stripped from The Handmaid's Tale and put into public circulation.
Exactly.
Oh, federal circulation.
Federal circulation. So, and I think what ends up happening, and at least this is how I see it, is I think if you're a woman who is new to geek culture or new to gaming, or you're kind of just on the fringe and you haven't immersed yourself in it, you almost feel like these guys are safe because you've been sold a really like clean cut, nerdy, will just kind of mumble at you, will be really nervous if you're in the gaming store persona. So you're like, oh, there's no way that they would attack me, harass me, any of it. And then you like sit down at a table and you're like, okay, so what dice am I supposed to roll right now? And then they're like, I don't even understand why you're here if you're not even going to learn. And then you're like, oh, that's hostile.
Right. And that's like, that is on the lighter end of how hostile it can be. It's brutal. Like you said, we've been sold this idea, and we like to think of people in boxes, right? We love to put people in boxes, especially, you know, when we're looking at opposite genders. We love to know, oh, he's the bad boy. Oh, he's the nerd, you know, he's the jock, that kind of thing. And so when you look at the boxes, you're like, all right, these jocks and these bad boys are dangerous people that I really shouldn't be emotionally invested in. But the nerds are always going to be safe. They're always going to be nervous. They're always going to be respectful. And that is not true at all. A lot of times we're seeing, it's coming to light more and more that these nerd dudes, these geek gamers, are just as dangerous as these people on the outside. They have no problem adding in sexual assault to their games, undermining your players, gaslighting you. I mean, they will use every trick in the book, just like every other man, to try to just bring you down. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, and I'm just thinking about something that, one of my former guests said. It's in the world of gaming, there's no check and balances for the way that they behave because it's just an accepted way that they're allowed to behave. So it's up to women or minorities or the queer community or anyone with neurodivergency to be like, hey, that pisses me off because I fall into that community and you just used a slur. And we can't be the people who are fighting against it because then we get fought twice as hard and kicked out of our game or told that we shouldn't be playing anyways. But there's no guy that's going to check his bros either because it's like, okay, well, I remember doing it 3 years ago, or when my girlfriend isn't playing, I do like to pop off and things like that. So the guys who either even maybe like realize that it's wrong or are trying to grow, they're still in a position where they're like, well, if I take away all of the ways that we're allowed to harass women in our game, that means that I don't get to make Laura Croft naked while I'm playing with a badge or whatever, a patch or whatever they call it.
Right. It's a secret and interpretive space, and it's perfect for hiding behind walls and just throwing shit right over. And it's unacceptable. And you would think, you know, I'm learning too, being a creator in this community, which is something that I have dreamed of and have always wanted to do. And now that I'm in this space and given this opportunity, I'm learning that standing up for just basic human rights, standing up for women, standing up for fairness in gaming or whatever industry you happen to be in, is very unpopular.
Yeah.
People hate it. And you would think, you know, with a lot of companies, you know, standing up and saying, oh, we support the LGBTQIA plus community, check out our logo. We slapped a rainbow sticker over it, you know, or rainbow.
We released a t-shirt.
Filter. Exactly. Therefore, we're allies. Therefore, we accept all, you know, all people of all, you know, communities. And that is not the case. And people still hate it. Mm-hmm. To this day, people can't stand it. And I just think that that's wild. That is wild.
It's wild. And this comes up in every episode. It's just wild to me that they're still so fragile about progress and change. Because when you go against them, it's like an immediate tantrum.
Yeah. It hits them right in the vulnerable spaces where they do house a lot of their shame, but don't want to come to terms with it.
Mm-mm. No. And it happens. So, and then you have to think about that the comic book industry and the gaming industry and whatever have sold to men who get to make all of these awful comments to us, a type of woman in their game or in their comic. Busty, ripped, like one of the boys, but not really because they have to be saved or whatever.
The girl next door, but sexy and unattainable.
Mm-hmm. Which, listen, I've always had boobs. I'm all here for boobs too, but I just don't understand why that's so important for like orcs to be like busty in World of Warcraft. But it happened in the movie.
They're like, but they're in proportion, and you're like, absolutely not. They absolutely are not in proportion with anything.
At what point does it make sense for like orcs to have like boobs that are like 3 times the size of their own head?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't.
No.
It does. They just want something so obnoxiously ostentatious. It's provocative.
Yeah.
It gets people's attention. Yeah.
So then when I, as a woman, choose to be rogue for Halloween or at a convention or whatever, and I'm wearing the costumes that are provided to me, or I've sewn or made a thing based on her costumes, that means that for an entire 4-day con, I'm going to have to deal with men who refuse to respect my boundaries. Mm-hmm.
Love that. You almost have to wear a giant hamster ball around your costume when you go to those, just so you get enough space.
Exactly. And I think, so the personal space thing too is one of the things that I think that they weaponize against us. And it's like, well, I wasn't hovering over you to be creepy. I'm just awkward, or there wasn't room or whatever. And it's like, no, you could literally be anywhere else, and your hands could also be anywhere else. And you're looming. It's not even that you're standing next to me.
It's especially true for cons. And they're so crowded. And like you said, they weaponize it. They use it as an excuse, you know, to get up in your space. And I think so many of us are really tired of having to turn the rules into something tangible.
Yeah.
They just do not get it. Unless it's like physically deflecting them, it doesn't exist.
Exactly. A great example of this is not the last time I was at Gen Con, because it was like social distancing Gen Con, but the last time we got to have a true Gen Con in Indianapolis, it's this big 4-day gaming convention. There were cosplay is not consent posters everywhere, because luckily for us, the cosplay is not consent movement, which is a movement where just because I am in a sexy costume does not mean that I want to have sex with you. It's literally me basing a costume off of a character. There were posters everywhere. And a couple of the men that I was with were very fragile about it. They were like,
what?
Yeah. Well,
oh my gosh.
I love when men throw this at me, where it's like, I don't even think that this is a problem. Who decided that this was a problem?
Yes. Yes, that happens constantly with any nerd community, any niche. We hear that constantly. I've never seen it before. This doesn't happen at my table, in my gaming sessions, at my cons.
Not all men and not all geek men. Like,
an absolute refusal. Right. Just because they haven't seen it, and they may have seen it hundreds of times, and they just refuse to acknowledge it because it's come from their friend, or they haven't recognized it, they're not paying attention. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Well, because, and I think part of the scenario is that men get the luxury to not be very observant about their surroundings. So maybe I do believe that you've walked Gen Con for 10 years and you've never, quote unquote, seen anyone get harassed. But I bet you that you've been in a room with someone who was currently being harassed and you just did not see it because you don't have to. So when I got the big, like, I don't understand why this is a problem enough that there are posters, I said, well, I know why it's a problem. And I was like, because when I walk around alone during Gen Con, I often have to get in between a woman in costume and a guy who wants to take not just the one selfie with her, but have like a full ass blown modeling shoot. Meanwhile, she's trying to communicate to you that she bought a ticket for an event at the con, and he's like, well, could you just kneel? Could you just do this pose? Could you like say this for my Instagram? And it's like, no, dude, she said she had to go and you heard her.
Exactly. And just blew it off. For white men, observance is a choice. It's a privilege because, it's a privilege and a choice. They don't have to engage with it to maintain their safety and their boundaries.
At all. I did not.
It's terrible.
The year that Kevin Sorbo was at Gen Con, I didn't watch him have to walk around with a handler, but I did have to watch Summer, what's her last name from Firefly? Anyways, it's one of the women from Firefly. Yes. Her first name is Summer. I watched her boyfriend literally like clutch her and like wave through the sea of people so no one would even get into her space. And I was like, oh.
Right. And then, there are some guys too that choose to use that in that instance as a way to justify them being needed. Well, I could protect you in crowds like that. No. Shut it down. Shut it down immediately. Well, and two, when it does happen to men, we know it does happen to men on rare circumstances, but it seems like when it does happen to men, the whole world has been violated. Yes. There's nothing else but their issues, and suddenly your problems are entirely invalidated.
Well, and I think, and I don't want to get too off topic with this, but I think the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial is bringing to light that when a man does suffer from abuse, which I do believe that Johnny Depp suffered from abuse, and I believe that Amber Heard suffered from abuse. I believe that they were in a marriage of suffering.
Yes.
But when men suffer abuse, it then gets to be the lighthouse that beacons to all other men. They all lied. They all made something out of nothing. And we were right all along because everyone gets abused in exactly the same way.
Right. It's an excuse to just throw a blanket statement over everything, Gosh, and it's intolerable. It should be intolerable and unacceptable, but again, who holds the bigger stick? We're still seeing all of these issues, being maintained by the same toxic communities.
And there's progress that has been made in the gaming community. When I started in a D&D campaign that my friend was going to run, she sent out a consent form and she's like, I want to know anything and everything. And she found it on Reddit. I want to know anything and everything you're cool with and not cool with. And it had things from sexy time with NPCs to spiders, because maybe you have arachnophobia and I don't know that.
Right. Or even mentions, of cringy things, of instances that may have happened, but you're not actually seeing or role playing in them. Yeah.
Because I think that's also important too, is that there are ways to know the lay of the land of your table and build a world around those parameters. Like Critical Role does fadeaways from time to time.
Yeah.
But I am assuming that all 8 of them had a conversation and agreed upon like fadeaways are fine. Our characters will hook up or they'll hook up with other people and it's cool.
Right. Or I guess what are the best ways to execute this? I'm sure that was a conversation they had at the table early on and in production meetings now as this has become a bigger thing. What is the best way to execute something like this? And I made a video on this recently too, how you can use the consent form to weaponize, depending on how the consent form is written. There are a few different versions, Google Docs, that are important. You know, consent forms are just now part of the process, or should be required at your table during session 0. You also should have a session 0 to set everything up and set expectations. But there are instances, you know, where people can weaponize it.
I remember that video,
really warp it.
Which I guess we should talk about how so geek culture has such a spread to it, but when you talk about the RPG community, there is a power structure to that because you do have someone who is the game runner and then they are the lord of the land that they are building for their players. Right. So there's a power imbalance there. So you're right. A DM could take all of those consent forms and then be all like, oh, I decided that I want Molly's character to have a breakdown today. Like, I'm going to crush her. And then it's like, well, I thought I signed up a form so I didn't have panic attacks at the table. And it's like, ooh, well, it turns out I actually just wanted to know what your greatest fears are so I could make sure that they were on the table.
Exactly. That's a great instance, you know, of one situation. Another one could be like majority rules. It's like, well, you were the only one that didn't agree with, you know, these 3 things on the consent form. But the rest did. And so we're just going to roll with that and just turn it into whatever we want it to be. The other ways that it can be weaponized is, by everyone filling out that they're okay with everything that's mentioned on the list. You know, you turn it into basically like a rated X game. Yeah. And with the majority rules kind of situation, anything goes at that point, and it becomes a very dangerous and toxic environment. Where people get pigeonholed into situations that they're not comfortable with.
Yeah, because I remember filling out the consent form and it was like hard to think through some of those things. As a person who is a storyteller, I was like, okay, now I have to set rules for a story and I've never had to do that before. And I was like, so I guess I'm going to mark I'm not okay with this to all of the things that pissed me off about Game of Thrones. And then you just circle.
Right. And it's funny too, because a lot of those instances are circumstantial and it's hard to kind of put yourself into, circumstantial, situations conceptually, and really follow it through and see out all the different ways that it could play out. That's difficult. It is a difficult thing. You live and you learn and you hope that the things that you miss aren't brought up in toxic ways. Yes. Yeah.
Then there is the lovely way that the media, I love that I'm part of the media now, but it's also like my number 3 enemy.
Yes.
I like to say it on my live stream from time to time. I'm like, you know, our enemy, the media that we're taking a part in right now.
You're just anti-media. Like, instead of an anti-hero, you're anti-media. And you just go against the grain entirely. I'm so here for it. I love it.
There's a lovely way that the media will portray women who are taking part in the gaming community. I don't know if anyone is aware of this, but when the trailer for the new Doctor Strange movie came out and Wanda said, when you make a mistake, you're a hero. And when I do it, I'm a villain. Again, the internet got very angry by that comparison.
And why is that? Because it holds so much truth. They didn't like it being called out? Is that the reason?
All I know is, And it all boils down to the same question. And it's a question that I get asked a lot when it comes to nerdy things and the people around me. It's like, why can't we ever just have fun here? Why are we constantly making a statement?
Yes, exactly. Suddenly you put some parameters on things, even, just based on the group that you're with, and they could be super sensitive, very snowflake friendly parameters, which there's nothing wrong with being a snowflake. Let me say that. There's nothing wrong with having boundaries and setting your comfort level in the groups that you're with. Or it could be, very, very loose. But as soon as you throw any kind of rule set on it, it immediately takes the fun away.
Did you just try to make me think about the state of our world? It happened during the Winter Soldier and Falcon, or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, however it went. Sam, who is an African American man, he said something about our government that was true. He called them out about being oppressive or unfair or something. And men that I personally know had a problem with it. It's like, this isn't what this is for. Like, we're just supposed to watch Falcon fly around and smash things and the Winter Soldier be moody.
Yes. Yep. The parameters there are explosions.
Mm-hmm.
That's their only expectation.
Which, by the way, I thought Falcon and Winter Soldier was boring because there were too many explosions. I was like, there's not a real story here. Sam said one thing that I was like, that's smart. And then it was bro code the rest of the way.
Was it directed by Michael Bay?
Ooh, I do not remember that. I remember thinking that WandaVision was perfect television and did a beautiful job going deep on grief and the human condition when you are in grief. And then, so WandaVision was perfect. And then immediately I went to Boys Town, Winter Soldier, and the Falcon, where it's just like, we're shooting people and we're punching people and there are explosions. And I was like, what happened to my beautiful look into the human condition?
Right. Complex storytelling.
Yes. And yeah. I think part of the problem with Winter Soldier and Falcon was the villain was an organization. I think the thing that Marvel does beautifully with their villains is that they make their villains like almost, it's like a hairline that separates them from the hero. Because sometimes a villain will be saying something and I'm like, that makes a lot of fucking sense.
Yep. I mean, villains are really just great heroes that sidestep.
Mm-hmm. Or they're a great hero who got a bad narrative because if someone else had been telling the story, maybe they would have been the hero.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Something was taken out of their control and warped in such a way, that they really had no choice.
And I always think it's amazing when people get so fragile over the Marvel movies and how they'll make social commentary, because I was like, I haven't researched Stan Lee. I haven't read his book. I have a very baseline knowledge of Stan Lee, but every time I am in some nonfiction world that Stan Lee is in, I remember a lot of people saying that he made sure that his comic books reflected whatever oppressed bullshit was going on at the time.
Right. Yes, during his generations, everything politically that was coming to light, socially, the discrimination, that he probably saw throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and so on.
And he used his comic books to be like, this could not be a thing. This could not be a thing.
Yeah. Right. What if it wasn't? What if this happened? What if this individual got bit by a spider?
And I love the argument that media is never supposed to represent real life, because it's like, then what are we doing? That's just Brave New World, where we're all going to the feelies and it's just colors and we're on drugs, which I'm still down for, but can't wait.
Well, maybe.
Right. I can't wait for us to just like fully lean into Brave New World.
You can't wait?
So here's the thing. I've been told by someone else that they're like, I've heard that they're having it's my friend Annie. She said it on my first live show. She goes, I've heard that high schools are having a really hard time teaching Brave New World now because no one actually views it as a dystopia anymore compared to everything else.
It's just, you open the book and it's today's newspaper.
It is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they're like, at least they drug their people.
Right. Right.
At least they drug their people. And
I mean, like, yeah, our drug
laser shows. I don't know.
Toxic socialization. That's
right.
That's today's drug. Yeah.
But that's what always gets me about the, like, why did we have to go here argument? And I'm like, well, so you want Marvel movies to be taken seriously by the public because they're your hobby and your passion. But the moment that anyone puts anything in them that would make them serious, you're mad.
Right. Because it interferes with their fantasy, right? They build up all these expectations and these side fantasies. They have their own AO3 in their head, and suddenly someone else is the author. And they can't stand it. And the other phenomenon, even before the trailer comes out, like with Captain Marvel, I think it was the one poster. Brie Larson got to be on one poster, and people are like, she's not happy. And Captain Marvel is happy. And how dare she not be happy to be Captain Marvel? What? First of all, Brie Larson, a badass. A very verified badass.
And a joyful person.
She's, oh my gosh, so multifaceted. We've seen her in a variety of roles, and every single one, she's killed it.
Right.
Killed it. But also, you know, given the world of Captain America as a reflection of our own times, you know, and disasters, why should she be happy?
Why should she be happy?
Right.
Also, she was literally doing the same superhero pose and face that Chris Evans has been getting away with for 10 years.
Totally. It's a stoic look, but suddenly it doesn't fit the agenda of what a woman superhero should be.
And by the
that's
way,
problematic.
I think that Chris Evans' face does look better when it's smirking. Thank you, Knives Out. But I didn't choose to put that on the internet.
Right. Nobody asked you.
And so there's this like awful, I couldn't imagine being signed on to a Marvel movie. I mean, I would do it. But I couldn't imagine my poster coming out and just like all of the Howards and Leonards of the world coming out to be like, you're supposed to be a redhead and you chose not to dye your hair, and now I can't actually view you as this person I used to masturbate to. It's like, well, I don't know.
Right. You're no longer my fantasy, and that's a problem.
Right.
It's like, you are one person and you are screaming through a phone. So no, I'm not going to take you seriously.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry that I get to be Captain Marvel.
Right. That I get a little piece of the stage.
And that I will never touch you.
Right. Yep. Sorry, but your fantasy rejects you.
Right.
How? And that's what they're mostly mad about, is that their fantasies are suddenly rejecting them.
Yes.
And that hurts.
I think was a topic of an episode on Big Bang Theory when, now I can't remember her name, but it's Summer from Firefly, the dark-haired girl.
Was it the girl that played Kaylee?
No, it's the girl who plays the weird girl that is like, the psychic or something.
His sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The one that they kind of just like get.
Yeah, the lab rat that was in that cryo tube. Yep.
So I remember this episode of Big Bang Theory. She's like on a train that like Leonard also happens to be on. And he's just like openly mouth breathing about her because it's one of his all-time celebrity passes.
Yeah. Sure.
And then instead of just like going up to Glasgow, I'm pretty sure is her name. I might be wrong.
I'm looking it up right now. Keep talking. I'm looking it up.
Instead of just going up to Summer and being all like, hey, I really admire your work on Firefly, which by the way is something that I've done to famous people in their DMs. And then they talk to me. So if that's like literally all you're wanting is attention from a famous person, just walk up and go, thank you so much for the joy you brought me. on Firefly. That's all they want to hear.
Totally. Yeah.
Instead, he's just openly mouth breathing. And then he like launches into this weird fantasy dream where like she's going to look at him and he's like fully married or engaged or dating Bernadette at this point. But like they're going to hook up on the train because she's like one of his passes or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
And then like, I think she just continues to read on the train because she doesn't know that you're mouth breathing at her.
Right. She's a human with her own life and interests, and we take that out of context.
And I remember him pouting about it. I was like, why would she hook up with you on the train? I'm confused.
Right. What makes you think that this is actually a realistic outcome? You know, her name is Summer Glau.
Glau? That's where I was getting Glasgow. There we go. I didn't meet her at Gen Con, but I did watch her walk around Gen Con and became very nervous for her safety. I was like, don't walk around. What are you doing?
Totally. You're doing like a loose perimeter around her, and her husband is doing like the tight one. Yeah.
Gosh. I was like, keep these weirdos.
I know. I will be like a women. I will be part of a women's wall, you know? Just phalanx with a bunch of women to protect others.
The looks I will give men when they ask the Harley Quinns, because all the time there are multiple Harley Quinns. I love Harley Quinn. She's unhinged. But there are always multiple Harley Quinns at any given con. And they like basically make them do sex acrobats for their enjoyment. It's like a lot of ab crunching. It's a lot of straddling one another. And I'm like, I hope this is enjoyable for you, but the moment that you start to look sad, I'm going to start shoving people and being like, go play a game. That's why we're here.
Right. Go play a game. Go buy something from a vendor. Go be a productive member of society. Don't leer. Don't gawk. Stop trying to groom this poor girl.
And I think,
oh gosh, what a nightmare.
It is a nightmare. And the gross part for me is it all comes down to ownership. And I think that was what was highlighted with the Marisha Ray thing, because these 7 people were playing a game that so many people love and take part in. Part of your brain goes, I own that. And then you subscribe to their Twitch channel. So you're kind of giving them money, and then you're donating to their Kickstarters, or you're donating to the charities that you're promoting. So then that ownership just keeps getting higher. So then if Marisha does something silly, like misread a spell and turn everyone into cloud people in the middle of a battle, then you're like, how dare you piss me off? I own you and I own this game. Why are you doing it wrong?
That is fascinating. That's a fascinating perspective. How we suddenly start owning these celebrities, these people that we look up to, our role models and heroes, because we have not just emotional investment, but now we've monetized that investment.
And I don't like that I do it, but I always stick up for the Kardashians when someone wants to be like, they suck. They don't do anything. Because this is always my point. And I go, we created the Kardashians. We created the exact life that they monetized, and we crafted them into the exact people we wanted to hate. So I'm not mad at them.
What a great perspective. I mean, I think more people need to hear that, to really come to terms with their own shame and their own emotional investment in that. Yeah, it's true. We've created the exact people we want to hate, like quite literally. I mean, nothing else really influenced it. I mean, you have buy-ins to fame, you know, with Caitlyn Jenner's presence, you know, in the Olympics, her competitive side. So there's little bits, you know, the Kardashian father being a billionaire, you know, but overall, that was us. Overall, we need to take, like you said, a different kind of ownership of that.
We loved to mock them. So they put themselves on E for 22 years to mock. So don't threaten them, or not be okay that Kanye is clearly abusing Kim and stalking her. Don't be okay with that just because you're like, well, I've gotten to judge her for 33 years. Okay.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's just an installation in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, realistically, these celebrities that we have in our heads, they don't exist. They're just our own understanding of them.
I've had a man tell me that he goes, I basically get to do whatever I want with celebrities, and so do all of we, because we build them up and give them a career just so we can push them off the cliff when we've done it. And I'm like, oh, that's fucking dark.
Yeah, it's true though. It happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Hollywood is built on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the leverage.
And I think the thing that carries me so far into Critical Role is, God damn it, their spirits won't be crushed now that they're like a little bit famous and people are mean to them on the internet. Matt has no problem telling trolls on Reddit, like, hey, you're not cool. And this isn't how critters act. And Sam's okay with writing an ad that says, and if you're calling in just to bitch about Marisha Ray, your answer is a resounding fuck you.
Hell yes. Hell yes. Well, and it helps too that they built that fame themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They know what it's like to struggle and to suffer and try to make it in Hollywood and be broke, as unrecognized voice actors. They know what it's like to be below average. And now that they have stepped all of the stairs up to where they are now,
mm-hmm.
They know what it's like. And they know how to handle toxic people because they've done it their entire lives. And that's rare.
Mm-hmm.
That's rare. And the other part of that is, they broke off from Geek and Sundry and created their own production company. So they have full control over what they want to advertise, what they want to put out on the internet, which is amazing. And I am 100% supportive of that. I mean, that's really how media should be. If you build something yourself, maintain control of that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I do want to talk about the safe place that you built on Discord for women plus people who want to play D&D or other RPG games. So could you talk a little bit about how that came to be?
Of course. I mean, it was kind of, and keep in mind, it's still a very small server. We're at 600 members officially. And there are a few other servers out there that sport a couple thousand, which is great and wonderful because we need all of those spaces. Yeah. We need as many safe spaces as possible. But it came about, summer of last year of 2021, where I had just gotten tired of seeing a lot of the other like women creators on TikTok just being undermined and like taking their fears to their own channels and expressing how hurt they were and how defeated they felt.
Yeah.
They were in tears. They had hated playing at, tables where the DM and the majority of the other players were men and just sacked them. It's awful. And so I came across one video and was tagged in it a few times, by the creator, Mage Holy, Mo. And she basically said, are there any other women out there who play D&D? And I stitched it, with a video, basically like just coming to her defense and, just trying to publicize that this wasn't okay, that the outcome came with consequences, that we weren't going to stand for it. And then I had a ton of people in my comments just saying, let's start a game. Let's play. And they were all women, they were all women that felt the same way, who had been under the same circumstances. And so I was like, I can't DM for everyone. I'm going to let them know and create a Discord server. And that video blew up. It got, I think, over 10,000 views. I'll have to check it out again. But I basically opened it up for women and any femme presenting individuals, as well as anyone, who identified as non-binary, and just wanted to have a safe space where people could find games, where women who were DMs could find a group of other women, where women of color could also find a community there. We have channels for women and people of color. And it has been an amazing experience, and I've had a lot of help, and I really appreciate that, but it has facilitated a lot of games, a lot of really positive outcomes, and a lot of friendships. And it has given space to create communities where the comfort of everyone involved is prioritized. And I love that.
And this is my first campaign, which is not on your Discord server. I'm in the Discord server, but I'm also overwhelmed.
It's a lot. It is not for the faint of heart. Yeah, but it's wonderful. Everyone there is so friendly and welcoming.
And it's mushroom themed.
It's mushroom themed, because honestly, who even are we? What is gender?
We're just toadstools, and that's perfect.
We're just toadstools. Yeah.
But this is my first D&D campaign where it's not led by a cisgender male, and there's no cisgender male presence in the players. There are in characters, but not in the players.
Sure.
And first off, it's kind of like the first time I've played D&D and no one's like really thrown a tantrum or gotten fragile about something. And I'm like, well, this is nice.
Isn't that wild? Just having a game that, upholds basic common sense and courtesy.
Yeah.
And we can't seem to do it. Wow. How amazing.
And
terrible that we have debased ourselves.
And so it's really nice to know, I am playing with all of my friends, but it's also just like really nice to know that I don't have to do that constant mitigation that I have to do with my male friends, so they feel comfortable about the fact that I'm on to all of the oppression in our world.
Yes. Right. You don't have to do your own gatekeeping or withholding.
Right.
That's amazing. Like I said, it's awful that we have gotten to this point and we can't even meet the bare minimum.
No.
Oh gosh. I mean, I'm so happy for you that you have now found a game like that. And I'm hoping, especially with the Discord group, that we are able to create more of those opportunities. Also, if you want to join the Discord group, I have a link in my TikTok bio for anyone interested.
And it'll be in the show notes.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. So kind of you.
Because one of my goals is I've only RPG'd D&D, except for one time I played like a Cthulhu RPG at Gen Con because it was LARPing and I didn't read past Witch Trial, and I was like, Salem Witch Trial, sign me up. And then I convinced my sister to sign up too. Then we got there and I read more in depth about the ticket and I was like, no. And she's like, what? I was like, it's Cthulhu. And she went, oh. And I was like, this could get really weird. So we'll just hold hands if that happens.
Yes. I mean, the people who are into Cthulhu, and the H.P. Lovecraft lore, surrounding Cthulhu, is often a very cool space.
Yes.
There are some pretty cool people that have chosen that niche.
So much fun. There wasn't anything weird with tentacles, which is what I was fearing.
Totally.
It could get weird. But one of my goals is and I've played Honey Heist because it's an RPG where you get to be a bear trying to steal honey. Hell yeah.
Yes. Marisha Ray DM'd a Honey Heist game. Yeah. Fantastic.
It's a great game. But one of my goals is to do more one-shots where there's like a little less pressure and you can just like really make wild choices because you know that after 4 hours, this is done. So let's make the wildest choices that you can.
Yes. Well, and that's a great way too to kind of feel out the mechanics, to feel out the true nature of your character. Mm-hmm. It's a great way to fast track that.
Yes. I love Matilda, my druid. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what her personality type is because she was supposed to be very cold and distant because her caretaker is ill and she thinks that it's her fault. But then she adopted an owlbear cub and I believe that it's healed her. Eleanor has healed her.
Yes, Eleanor and Matilda. High quality names.
Thank
I'm
you.
so here for this.
Eleanor has healed her, and honestly, that's what animals do, even owlbears who are frightening. But I just papoose her to me until we're in a battle, and then I just go eat something.
Just throw the feather floof out of combat. Yes.
So now Matilda smiles, and I was like, shit, I was supposed to be cold and stoic for longer and mysterious until I figured out more about like where her trauma truly lies.
Do you feel like it's too late for you to backtrack that? To kind of build up some steps into where she currently is?
I mean, no, you can, I mean, that's how character development works in the real world. We always do backslides. So
That's true.
So there are moments where Matilda gets real, like, freaked. One time our DM took our background stories and she made apparitions of our loved ones that were in, like, no longer in our lives anymore or dead or whatever. So when Matilda saw a ghost of her aunt and no one else could see the ghost, she was convinced that her aunt had passed and she had already failed her quest.
Oh, shit.
So I had a full meltdown.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Were you comfortable with that? With your DM doing that?
I was, because I love spooky shit.
Yeah, okay. We're all sluts for spooky shit. But like, that's pretty deep.
Oh yeah, that is some This Is Us bullshit. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's some pretty serious sniz.
And it was I remember writing in my main character energy journal, because I stopped writing about gratitude because we live in the age of 2022, and I started just writing down instances where I had been the main character of my own story. It's
honestly awesome.
Thank you.
I want to read this.
Thank you. I got it from Taylor Tomlinson. I didn't even make it up. She said it on Sad in the City.
Like, Taylor Tomlinson. Goals.
Oh,
what an icon.
I'm seeing her for the 3rd time this summer.
That is so cool. Yeah. That is so cool. Eliza Schlesinger is coming to Salt Lake like next week. Mm-hmm. And like, I'm pretty sure it's too late for me to get tickets, but one day I will see her.
This is what I've learned, because I just did it at Garth Brooks. You can get a single ticket and have it be a decent single ticket at every show that they're already advertising is sold out.
Really?
Because they already think that no one's going to buy the single tickets. So if you take Ticketmaster and move it to 1, all of a sudden the entire map opens up, because there's always a single ticket somewhere.
Right. They're always going to have one empty seat, one person that doesn't show up, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So I went to Garth Brooks by myself, and it was a banger.
Honestly, take yourself out. Yeah. Take yourself out.
Natalie,
throughout this podcast, I feel like we approached it with such structure, and now we have derailed everything.
Welcome to All the Men I've Tolerated Before.
I love it. I'm so here for the ADHD topic changes.
So much of it is just like little daily updates of my mania. But you had asked me about whether I felt like that. I mean, we all talked about it as a party when we like called the session, and we were like, okay. That was rough. That was rough, but we all kind of made through it. And like, that's kind of what you have to do also to like propel your character forward. And it also made us learn more things about one another, which hadn't happened yet. So it was necessary for the plot. And I think everyone still felt safe.
Okay. And it's important to have those decompression sessions afterwards. Mm-hmm. That's another key element, of all of this. So that's great. I mean, you do need sessions like that where they're more serious, but they drive the character development.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Or else you're literally just playing Baldur's Gate, which, not knocking it, love Baldur's Gate, but you just walk around slashing things.
Totally. Right. And if that is your prerogative for gaming, for being part of a D&D session, any tabletop session, go for it. Go for it. I do appreciate the storytelling, though. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm here to create a collaborative story with other people. Yeah, definitely.
So we have arrived at just about the hour, so we have to do our 2 traditions on To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. We have to talk about our greatest lesson that we can impart onto people who may also be going through this, or the thing that we've learned the most about ourselves because we've had to be in a community where there is gatekeeping in gaming. And then we take all of that like, I grew and it was icky, and we spin it around and we project it into the universe as a positive manifestation about where the collective energy can go next.
Wow. I love this, and I already feel like I'm going to fail.
Do you want me to go first? People?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm perfectly fine with modeling. I was a teacher. But when people look at me, when like I get the doe eyes, I'm like, I can go first. It'll be okay. It backfired with my best friend from high school because she's like, well, how the fuck am I supposed to come up with a sentence like that? I was like,
oh my gosh.
So I think the biggest lesson that I can take away from this conversation and about being a woman in gaming and what gatekeeping looks like is there is such a radical honesty that is coming out of women, non-binary, the LGBTQAI plus community, the BIPOCs, all of it, the BIPOC community. That was weird to just like make them
BIPOCs.
Like they're a rock band.
Yeah.
I don't think I wanted to say C and then community all at the same once, but there's such a radical honesty happening. And I think in a lot of my life, whenever I've been radically honest, I've been immediately shut down. So there's a fear level to that radical honesty. And so I think my biggest lesson is embrace the fear and then also be honest about why this is hard to talk about.
I love that.
Thank you.
I totally love that. That's perfect and wonderful. The biggest lesson that I have probably learned throughout both of this conversation and my experience, in this community, has been don't be afraid to stand up to be a defender of marginalized groups, and also call out your own shame when you hear things that make you angry, when you embrace things that challenge your idea of normalcy and bring about change.
Yeah.
Stop and think about why you might be feeling such a lack of embrace, why you're feeling such an encumbrance to adopting those ideas, because a lot of times you will realize it's your own shame that's keeping you back from changing and from improving the communities that you're in, including our own gaming communities.
Yeah.
Putting parameters on fun isn't problematic. If anything, it allows for greater creativity and a greater experience overall. Let's all tell a collaborative story together without the toxicity.
When it comes to the shame and the guilt, I think another important lesson is it's okay to feel like the shame and the guilt if you watch someone else get away with something or get chastised for something that you know that you've gotten away with. Like, I think that we have sold a narrative that shame and guilt aren't actually productive emotions.
Yeah.
And that's why they eventually turn into anger and outbursts. But if you, like you said, sit in it and go, oh, I need to study that. Like, then that kind of rewrites the narrative on what, because we've been shamed and chastised a lot just in our culture in general. So sometimes sometimes you're belligerent about something and you don't even understand why you're belligerent about it. Like, this is my stance. I don't know why it's my stance, but here I am because I'm uncomfy.
Yeah. And I would say, leverage your hobbies and the things you're passionate about to bring about the changes you want in your own life. Develop yourself as a better person. Use it as a therapy sesh. Definitely. There's a lot you can change. Recognize your shame, call it out, be a better person through the things you're passionate about.
Yeah. And I think my manifestation for going forward and what I would hope for this gaming community that I desperately love and would love to continue to be a part of is I hope that if at any point you're listening to this and you have felt like you didn't feel worthy enough of calling out your table on the things that make you uncomfy, and you've just internalized that you now know that the environment you're playing in should be safe and fun for you, and you don't have to swallow down those feelings. And if you need me to make the audio message on Instagram to be like, this is why this sucks, I'll do it.
Yep. 100%.
Yep.
And I will support you and just really back you up on that.
Yeah.
I'll do one too. Happy to. Whatever all of you need.
An Instagram live, a reel, a TikTok.
Yeah. Where we're just calling out your table.
Yeah.
For it. Just let us know.
Because I do feel like when you're a part of a community and you know that D&D is supposed to be fun and you're supposed to be having fun, when you're the person who isn't having fun because no one knows that they've insulted you because it was just like an offhand and they didn't have to think about whether or not it was an insult because of their privilege, that's a very lonely space to be in. Yeah.
Definitely.
What would you hope for moving forward in the geek gaming community?
Yeah, what I would hope for in the geek gaming community is just to continue developing and continue your search for safe spaces. Mm-hmm. They are out there. They exist. The people in those communities love you, and challenge your bad experiences with the possibility of what might be.
Yeah.
We're here for you. So I hope that we can continue creating safe spaces and continue challenging the toxicity that we see in our favorite communities. So
yeah. And for all of the players out there who are now worried that you made a mistake or a mishap or someone uncomfortable, you probably did, but we all did at some point. Yeah. And that's okay too. That also gets to be part of the healing. And if you really feel like you're going to miss being sarcastic or like have slap ass comedy or whatever, Sam Riegel is somehow very obnoxious, but not offensive.
Exactly. Use him as what you model your own experiences. I
truly love him.
He's great. He's a fantastic human.
Want to go to karaoke with him so bad.
Oh yeah. He'd be a riot.
Yeah.
It'd be so fun.
Please let the tolerators and the listeners know where they can find you on the interweb.
Oh, thank you. For anyone listening and curious about the content that I create and the Discord community, you can find me at New to You with 3 U's on TikTok, on Instagram, and I will soon be pumping up a YouTube and Twitch channel here.
Yes.
So you can find me on all the major platforms here.
I'm very excited to see like your TikToks become longer content.
Oh yeah? In YouTube? Yeah.
I'm excited.
I am honored that you are excited. I am fearful. I've never done YouTube. I've never, I have some reels. I have my TikTok reels up on YouTube. But I don't have any longer form content. And so I have some ideas. And I'm excited to break into that. So come along with me on that journey. And we will continue just to support each other.
That's right.
Listening. And Natalie, you are wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, thank you for being here.
I'm flattered that you even thought to ask me.
Anytime you're pissed off about something, please just let me know that you want to do another episode because I just want to spend hours upon hours talking to you. So
yes.
Under whatever circumstance.
Anytime. We will do this again. I'm so stoked.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
And tolerators, there was a commercial at the beginning of this because I'm going to end this because maybe Natalie and I will just talk without you now.
Be jealous that you're not part of that.
That's right. There was a commercial at the beginning of this episode done by yours truly about the Linktree and finding the Patreon and all the ways to support us. There are free ways to support us too, like liking posts, following us on Instagram at Men I've Tolerated Pod, following the Fireside live stream show. The more active you are, the more likely people with money will give me money. It's a wonderful system.
Oh, yes. It's all interconnected too.
Right. It's all just interconnected. Yeah. So you can do free stuff and it'll still eventually make me money. So feel good about yourself.
Doing the Lord's work.
Doing the Lord's work. And remember, tolerators, you don't have to smile through anything you're tolerating, including really gross, violent, volatile comments made during a game by a community who is allowed to get away with that, even though the world is changing. Smiles are for joy.